Let's have a conversation about transitions. Transitions are a very common place where we as individuals, and this is also children and adults, but as individuals, we have a higher probability of losing ourselves. As we are moving through transitions in our life, it is a very common pattern to get disoriented, to get ungrounded, to not really have a sense of where am I in this transition. Sometimes we want to hold on to what we're leaving, so to speak, and try to grasp onto what we're moving towards. But one of the tricky things about transitions is often what we're moving towards is pretty nebulous. Sometimes it's concrete, sometimes it's not. The nature of transition is really asking us to find ourselves in the unknown, which again is a very ungrounding place for many individuals. It's very ungrounding for children, which is why there's no coincidence that transitions are also one of the number one places where we see children struggle behaviorally. And I think that that's just really interesting to overlay with what we're talking about, this idea of as they're being asked to go from here to here, as they're being asked to navigate the unknown, to stop what they're doing, to go to the next thing, to go from this house to this house, to transition from this class to this class, that that we're really expecting them in some ways to somehow hold on to themselves or stay steady, and yet it's really, really hard to do, and outcome behavioral things, which also happens for us as adults. Transitions in adulthood is also a great place where adults tend to act out, so to speak. So the point in me saying this is that, number one, to normalize that transitions can feel very ungrounding. But then the second piece is, well, what do we do? And so I want us to think about this not only as therapists, but just people in the world. What do we do when we're in transition and things start to feel wobbly? The impulse and instinct is to look outside of ourselves, to hold on to something, if you will, to try to steady ourselves to feel safe and secure. But remember, I said transition is, it's in motion, it's moving. So to try to grab onto something outside of ourselves actually can create even more dysregulation because it's moving. Let's go with the image here of a tornado. So we're trying to find that eye in the center of the storm. If you can imagine trying to grab onto the walls of the tornado as we're trying to anchor in, you can see that it just doesn't work. Everything's moving. So how do we then turn inward? And that's really the piece. It's not easy to do, but it is the work. As things are moving, as we're navigating unknowns, as we're helping kids navigate unknowns, how do we anchor inward? That might be through more breath. That might be literally feeling the body in a deeper way. That might be more focus on legs and feet. That might be holding onto something with our hands. That might be anchoring in and just naming, I feel lost. I don't know what's happening. Things are moving. I'm scared. It may be actually finding someone for a temporary moment to orient to and saying, I need a hug. Again, it's not putting our sense of safety in them or our sense of okayness in them. It's asking them to hold us so that we can find it within. That's a very important point. But what do we need to do to anchor inward as everything is spinning around us? The last thing that I'll say in transition, and this is life transitions here for adults, is also just be aware of the expectations we have on ourselves about being who we used to be or life being how it was, and not fully embracing what is trying to become and what is emerging, and allowing that to slowly come into focus. So transitions can be tricky. We want to orient outward. We want to try to stabilize. We want to try to control. But the real work is, how do I find myself in my center, and how do I stay steady within as everything is moving around me? And if I'm supporting a child in this, how do I help them do the same? How do I help them anchor in as they are also in transition? So, deep breaths as we are on transition journeys, and remember to feel your feet, and remind yourself that you are here, that you are okay, even if everything around you does not feel quite like